Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the Knife Center. Welcome to Knife AQ, episode number 124. This is the knife series where I answer all your questions, whether they're sharp or dull. And this week, I've got some good ones and a little bit of a theme going. We're going to talk a little bit about how important it is to be able to easily carry your knife of choice, because the knife is only good if you got it with you. So, let's get into it. All right, everyone, welcome to the show. If you are new to this particular part of our YouTube channel, this Knife AQ series, what we do is we comb through the comments section where you folks tend to ask a lot of good questions, and we pull out a few to feature in each one of these episodes. So if you've got a question and you think it might be worthy of inclusion in a future episode, drop it down below. Or even if not, sometimes don't be nervous. Maybe it is worthy of consideration, whether you think it is or not. First question today comes from Jerry Pomeroy. Hey, DCA and Thomas. That's that guy behind the camera. Summer is right around the corner, and with shorts, I prefer a somewhat smaller / lighter folder in the pocket. As it stands, the only knife that fits the bill in my collection is a first-gen Civivi Elementum. Any suggestions under $150 with a decent stainless? Summer equals sweat, and of course the Elementum is D2 steel, and isn't a bug out. Another caveat. Thank you for mentioning not a bug out, because that is like the number one. It's kind of hard to not suggest the bug out for something like that due to its popularity and availability and whatnot. So we'll come up with some different things for that. I will, however, say, check out the video we did in our Beat the Icon series on the bug out. That could have a few other options, bug out alternatives, some of them more lightweight than others, but we'll make sure to try and leave a link up here, down in the comments or description box below. You can check out some of those. I will pull one knife here that showed up in that video, and then a couple others that didn't, because they aren't quite bug out competitors, but kind of fit your question anyway. But it's hard when talking about the bug out not to mention the new Magna Cut versions, especially of the Hogue Deca. You've got the polymer handle scales here, more rigid than the bug out, so they've got more stability this way. They don't kind of squish as much. Some people don't like the tiny bit of flex you can get from a bug out handle. You've also got the Magna Cut blade steel, incredibly rust resistant, incredibly high performing these days as well, both in toughness and edge retention, which is pretty cool. You don't need the black coating here for the rust resistance either. This just happens to be the one I pulled today. Price on these, about $144 for the black coated version, so right in your price range there. And I think the satin coated, or the satin versions should be even a few bucks less expensive. Confirming. Yeah, about $135 for those. Sorry, internet's running kind of slow today. So either one of those could work great. You've got your choice of the clip point blade here, or a modified sheep's foot, although, what do they call it? A reverse tanto on the website? I don't even know anymore. What do we call it on the website? We get mad at our own website again here real quick. No, we do call it a modified Warncliffe, so that's good. Appropriate. So you've got two different flavors to choose from there in terms of the cutting experience, how you use the blade itself, and a few different colors as well. You could also spend a little bit more for the G10 and 20CV versions for potentially even more edge retention, but outside your budget and not quite as lightweight. Deep carry pocket clip on this also helps it keep nice and out of the way. A couple others. I'm not going to mention, actually I should mention our ultralight knives video we did at one point.
We did one of those.
We did one of those. We'll leave a link there or down there as well. For some truly very lightweight options. I've got a few here, again, that don't quite fit into either of those two videos because they're lightweight enough as far as I'm concerned. You don't necessarily need ultralight in the type of scenario you're describing, but on the lighter side, gotta talk about the Delica. Check it out. This one here has the Emerson opener, the Emerson Wave. So as you draw it from your pocket, or the hem of your athletic shorts or whatever you're wearing in the summer, you can hook the hem on the hook on the blade there whenever you wish and open it pretty quickly, which is kind of nice. The weight on this knife is about 2.5 ounces. The bug out itself is like 1.8, so not too much more than that, but it has a much more substantial feel in the hand, I would say. And that's substantive nature is backed up by the grind on this Emerson version. You can get the full flat ground, non-waved versions for more sliciness, or you can go with the more sturdy saber flat grind, or flat saber grind that you see on this one here. And I do say flat saber grind because sometimes saber grinds are hollow. So there you go. Really cool knife, 4-position pocket clip. Talking about moisture and sweat, you've got plenty of grip due to their bidirectional texturing right here. VG10 is a good, nice, clean stainless. Works very well, holds an edge pretty well too. Not as much as the Magna Cut there on the first knife, but yeah, be that as it may. About 99 bucks for this one, made in Japan. And thirdly, but not leastly, the Civivi Badlands Vagabond. 2 different versions of this you can get. You can spend as little as about 40 bucks for a 9CR series stainless blade, which is a good enough stainless, but given that you mentioned a budget of about 150, how about this one right here? This is a KnifeCenter exclusive with white FRN and S35 VN for the blade steel at a pretty bargain price of about $80. Really nice blade shape. The S35 version here is ever so slightly thinner even than the 9CR, so it's going to 9CR version, so it's going to slice even better. You've got an excellent fine edge, very thin in typical Civivi fashion. 3¼ inch blade on this, which is about the same as the bug out, just under 3 ounces for this one. So still very, very manageable. You've got skeletonized liners, ball bearings in the pivot here, nice crisp action, deep carry clip. So I think between these 3, all of them are good options, and I think very different options depending on what kind of feature set and style you're looking for. Hope one of those gets you what you need and should be easy enough to carry for you, because as mentioned in the tag of the video, or the beginning of this video here, very important to actually be comfortable carrying what you've got. Along those same lines, next question here comes from Josh Odell. Okay, I am looking for my first fixed blade knife. I want it to have a Scout Carry Kydex holster. Looking at the $150 range, but it's a toss-up between Tops and Essie. I'm looking from 3.5 to 4.5 inches, and for crossbody appendix, which is Scout Carry, of course, so at the small of your back, basically. I've got some tactical muffin top, so be gentle. But if you can help, it would be nice. Love the videos. Thank you, Josh.
The fly swatter would be nice.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see this fly that's, flying around behind me here. We're just gonna have to make do and roll with it because I'm not precise enough to slice it out of midair. So, tactical muffin top. That's hilarious. All right, I got a couple things here for you. I've got an Essie and a Tops, and when you're talking about it fitting a larger body type, believe me, I know what's going on right there. Fortunately, unfortunately. It's about ease of carry, and you want to make it as easy to carry as it can be, meaning smaller, quite honestly, both in the blade and the sheath dimension. So I'm going to keep the blades on the shorter end of what you mentioned there, but we got to honestly look at sheaths first. I'll start with Essie, and I have before conceal carried an Essie 3 for a brief period of time. I was trying it out to see how it would do. And it comes with a molded sheath, not technically Kydex, but clicks in just the same. But you can see even this SE3 here, which is a fantastic knife, by the way, which comes with about 3 3/4 inch of blade measured from tip to scale. It's got a nice thin cross section and a full flat grind, which means as far as a daily carry fixed blade, which you didn't actually mention daily carry, but I was kind of thinking along those lines. If you just mentioned fixed blade for no particular application, so I'm going to go with something that's going to be useful day to day, something more utilitarian as opposed to last-ditch tactical, or I think you might have mentioned that if that's what you were looking for. But anyway, great cross-section for that sort of thing. There's the sheath. Pretty wide package, and indeed it sticks up a little bit above the spine, which can kind of ride further up on your belt, depending on how this is actually mounted. Compare that with a Tops, and I'm going to pick one here that is kind of the same form factor, same size and style as the SE3, and that's the Overlander 2. Very similar lengths, overall dimensions. I will say, however, the Overlander 2 is much thicker, and it has a flat ground saber grind here, so more tactical or survival knife even, less so of a slicer, but both about the same size. Now, despite this knife being thicker, chunkier, the sheath on many Tops models tend to be taco style. This is Kydex actually, as opposed to the SE sheath, which is a pancake style. Two sides, sandwiched on top of each other, stacked on top of each other, like a stack of pancakes. Obviously, this taco style is going to be slimmer, easier to carry, less sticking up above the belt line when it's mounted. One caveat though, and I didn't think of this when I picked this knife out, which is why I have another option here in just a second. This comes right out of the box with a mounting option that you can do cross-body. And it's going to work great if you're left-handed, because think about it, that's going to be mounted like so behind you. If you wanted to use your right hand, you're going to be going edge up, and I wouldn't want to slice into the muffin top when you're going that way. Although small of the back's a little easier than side of the body anyway. So maybe not quite what I would want to go for. You could certainly remove this and do another mounting option if you wish, which actually I need to back up. Rambling a bit here, sorry. As for the mounting options that come with the SE, the clip that this does come with doesn't work horizontally, so you are going to need to purchase a tech lock, which is this doodad right here, which will allow you to carry it in that horizontal fashion. So that's a little bit of an extra cost right there, on top of a $138 knife to begin with. This Tops is a little less expensive, $128, with a belt clip already included that will work if you're left-handed. One more option to take a look at is the Tops Dicer 3, which also I think is even more similar in actuality to the SE3 and the Overlander 2. There you go. Both have about the same amount of sharpened edge, more or less. Both are nice and thin. The Dicer 3 is even thinner, but the Dicer 3 is marketed as a kitchen knife. Okay, Tops is not known particularly for their kitchen knives, but they do have the Dicer series. But because it's Tops, they include a Kydex sheath. And it is taco style, so it is going to be pretty unobtrusive, easy to carry. You will also need to purchase, in this case, however, a tech lock or something else. And you will need to modify this sheath ever so slightly because their holes here don't quite match up with the tech lock pattern. Real easy to just drill an extra hole in there. You don't need to worry about the rivet. It'll certainly work just fine. This would honestly be my recommendation. It's a little more expensive, actually. Did you mention a price range in your thing? No, you did not. You said 150 range. Well, this one is a little bit more. Where'd my tab go? We're about $177 for it. But that's going to be a lot easier to carry at the smaller your back, or if you're going on either side of the body, if you want to switch things around, doing the cross draw thing, a lot easier to carry, especially around a muffin top, I think. There you go. Check those options out. Oh, and if I didn't mention it before, actually can't remember if I did or not, S35VN steel on that Dicer 3, which, if you're carrying it, around the waist, carrying it often and every day, much more rust resistant too than the 1095 of either of those other two options. Pretty darn comfortable too with the nice G10 handles going on there. Really cool knife. I actually think it makes an even better outdoor knife or everyday carry knife than it does a kitchen knife, but don't tell Tops that. It's actually one of my favorite knives they make. I really like it. Anyway, next question. Carlos Silva says, DCA, I'm putting together a 3-knife combo for day hikes. I'm going for a blue theme for visibility, and I want the 3 knives to serve different purposes. I've just bought the blue Demco Free Rein as my primary knife, and I plan to carry a blue Mora Eldris as a neck knife for whittling and small bushcrafting tasks. I'll just jump in here and say that right there, those 2 knives is a pretty great combo. You've got your little bit larger knife for the heavier duty stuff. It's got a thick enough spine there to withstand some abuse. Great all-around blade shape. You could carve with this if you need to, baton, do some heavier stuff with it as needed. And then the Eldris is just such a great, small, comfortable whittler. Definitely a little more comfortable for some of the finer tasks, especially than the Free Rein. Great start right there, I gotta say. Where was I? However, I have not settled yet on the folder for my backup knife, and I'd love to hear your recommendations. My requirements are, in orders of importance, handles with a comfortable contour for extended use, preferably blue, but orange would also be fine, 3 to 4 inch blade, preferably stainless and closer to 4 inches, and I typically don't prefer liner locks, though I'm willing to consider liner locking knives if they're time tested like the Rat 1. Thanks. All right, cool. I may have gone a little bit overboard with some options right here, but I really liked this one, and I liked the mental exercise for it. Like I said, between the two of these right here, you've got a great complementary set. So what's the folding knife going to bring to the table that's going to be different from these? And for me, I think the convenience of something could be nice, or the convenience of a folder could be nice. I'd probably go for something a little on the slicier side, because you've got a great little kind of bushcrafty small knife with the Eldris, and just a more general purpose slicier grind that you want to whip out for smaller cuts that would be a little more cumbersome to do with the big Demco, I think is that's kind of where I would want to live if I were doing this combo. Blue outdoor comfortable knives, the comfort part is honestly where things get harder to manage, because folders often have a lot of compromises in terms of comfort, because oftentimes pocketability is much more of a high priority for most buyers than handle comfort, quite honestly. And also you got the folding mechanisms and stuff to work around. So those are typically the higher priority lists. But when we talk about comfortable folders, we have to talk about Opinel real quick. And they do have a blue version of the number 8 folder. It comes in like $40 right here. This definitely offers a different use case, different use experience than these other two knives you've already planned for your kit. First and foremost, we've got the partially serrated edge right here, which could be great for working with rope, especially fibrous stuff, whether man-made or natural. So you've got a real cool option there. And you've got a survival whistle built into the base, which is kind of nice. They do lock just like the wood-handled versions, and they lock closed as well, thanks to the VibraBlock ring there. And unlike the wood-handled versions, you're not going to have to worry so much about the pivot getting wet and swelling with humidity or moisture too. A little bit on the smaller side for what you're looking for. It's closer to 3 inches than 4 inches. We're about 3 1/4 here, but that could be an option. If you want bigger and you still want blue, along similar lines, the Old Bear series from Maniago, Italy could be really good. This is a $30 knife here, and you got a 3.5 inch 420HC blade, plain edge, which I would actually prefer. The partial serrations are nice if you see it having a place in your kit, but the plain edge here is going to be easier to sharpen. You do have the wood handle here, however, so you do have to be careful not to let it get too wet, but check out the blue dyed wood handle there. It's crazy comfortable, feels nice, looks really nice. The edge on this knife is excellent. Similar locking style, but actually different. You've got this tabbed ring inside the collar there, and it also works in the open or the closed position. Now these knives are nice. The one thing they don't offer that I did mention there at the beginning was a bit of that convenience factor. A pocket clipped knife is easier to get in and out more quickly. So let's talk about some other options too. You could look at the Cold Steel Finn Wolf. This is the orange version, but there is a blue one as well. But I personally wouldn't go with this for 2 reasons. In this specific set you laid out specifically. If you didn't already have the Eldris, you might want the Scandi grind on this Finn Wolf right here. But since you have it, again, like I said, I would prefer something a little more slicey. And for comfort, it's not bad. It's a little on the thin side. And if you're going to be spending a lot of time carving, you're going to be a lot happier using the Eldris than this knife right here. They are quite affordable and quite strong though. You've got the triad lock for a great degree of strength in the lockup there. And they're like $37 right now. Pretty good deal for what you're getting, quite honestly. Aus-8 blade, about 3.5 inches. I'll give you one liner lock option, and while it may not have quite the pedigree of the Rat series over the years, the Honey Badger knives are pretty well respected as another affordable option. About $56 for this one, 3.6 inch blade, D2 steel. This is the large drop point version. That's basically the way they break up their lineup. They've got small, medium, large, and each one has roughly the same shaped handle, and each size has several different blade shapes to choose from. 56 bucks, like I said. Similar to the Finn Wolf, the handles are a little bit on the thinner side, but they're okay. Again, dealing with a set of compromises there a little bit. You do have ball bearings in the pivot here, so make sure to keep them clean. Nice, crisp action though. Liner lock, plenty of traction on the blue. A couple of different opening options. And honestly, the blade shape is phenomenal. Full flat ground, drop point in that length. You can do a lot of different stuff with that shape. Next up, I've got a couple of SOGs to take a look at. The first is the Flash AT. Nice blue handle there, 85 bucks, 3.5-inch D2 blade with the coating here to help the corrosion monsters stay away. This is an assisted opening knife, hence the AT in the moniker, but it is a great little shape. Action works great. The blade, again, is fantastic for versatility, high flat grind on that drop point. You have a spine-mounted safety here that can keep the knife closed, keep the assist from taking over if the thumb studs were to get snagged on something. Then you've got the finger-safe nature of that crossbar lock right there too, which is always extra good in an outdoor scenario because it could turn into a survival scenario real quick if something goes wrong. One last option. Actually, I have one other option after this, but one last thing in the main part of your query, and a bit of a kind of outside curveball here. Check out the Pentagon XR-LTE from SOG. Wait a minute, you're saying. That's pretty much a very tactical knife, and you'd be right, but look a little bit under the skin. This is an expensive knife, more expensive than actually both the other two knives you've started your kit with put together. About 210 bucks for this. You got a 3.6-inch blade of CTS XHP, blue G10 handles, carbon fiber liners. I had to check to make sure I was remembering that correctly. That keeps the weight down. Very important thing on any kind of hike, and you've already got two other blades with you. Really, this says 4.9 ounces on the side. It feels less than that. Hang on, we're gonna find out. 3.2 ounces. Guess we'll have to correct our website here. This is a lot of knife for 3.2 ounces. Put that away. Yeah, we'll leave it over there. This is a lot of knife for 3.2 ounces. It is, despite having a less comfortable looking handle, actually quite nice. And the reason I'm picking this or showing you this, even though it's a tactical knife, is if you squint, this looks almost like a Kephart knife. Classic outdoor fixed blade design. You've got that spear point shape. You do have a very little hint of sharpened rear edge. You can always grind that down if you don't like that. You've got a fairly simple handle shape, just one index finger groove there to help keep things indexed really nicely. And that spear point blade is dagger ground. It's not sharpened on the rear end, but it has dual flat grinds. And in a way, that's actually very similar if you look at the historical examples of the old Cole-Klesser brothers Kepharts, the original Kepharts. They were convex ground towards the edge and back towards the spine. So you'd have this kind of Appleseed geometry going back towards the spine as well. This gets you in a similar ballpark to something like that. And it's nice and blue. There you go. Some folks out there might be asking yourselves, why go with blue? Well, you mentioned it, our questioner, what was his name? Carlos mentioned it right at the beginning, visibility. Although orange is kind of the typical highly visible color, or what's thought of as the most visible color outdoors, in reality, and in most scenarios, not all necessarily, but in many, if not most scenarios, blue, a vibrant blue, is actually more easily spotted because it's one of the most least commonly occurring colors in nature. Interesting. Plus they're nice and vibrant too. Now I showed you all of this stuff to show you what I would not pair these with if I were you. If I were me, I would go with this right here. The Swiss Army Huntsman from Victorinox. Because this, to me, offers, let me set it right here next to these other two knives, a much more broad complement to what you've already got than any other single blade folder already does. Plus you can get it in blue, this sapphire color right here. And the price on it is about 50 bucks. And there are plenty of, good outdoor Swiss Army knife models, but of my favorites, the Huntsman is the only one that comes in blue. So this fits what you got there. You've got two blades. You've got a smaller whittler right here with the pen blade. And honestly, this right here, for comfort, is a lot better than most folders on the market, including some of the ones I showed you right here. Really nice for longer hours of work. Honestly, holding them all here, the Opinels and the Old Bears are pretty good, but you are going to deal with some of the drawbacks I talked about. The Swiss Army knife right here has it. You've also got a larger blade, so you've got two extra blades to back up what you've got. You've got a small saw, you've got scissors, you've got can opener and cap lifter, you've got a wine corkscrew, that's the word.
Good job.
Which, as I've always said, for an outdoor tool is actually really handy, even if you're not drinking vino, because this works great at loosening really tight knots, especially in paracord. You can use this kind of like a marlin spike to get into the knot, start loosening it up that way. We've got an awl at the back, a parcel hook, lots of great stuff right here. That's honestly what I would do for my the third tool, if you're looking for a third knife to add. There you go. Circuitous way of saying I wouldn't buy any of the things, or I would do something different from what you suggested. But anyway, thanks for the question, Carlos. I had a lot of fun thinking about it, and I hope that helps. Well, now we come to the lightning round for today, which, another question. I didn't plan this at all. It's Carlos Silva again.
You need to start reading these.
I swear to you, I did not plan this, and I'm just now noticing it. And given the subject of this question, it's even funnier that I just ended on a Swiss Army knife. Oh my gosh. I wish I could say I planned this. I really didn't. Carlos Silva says, here's an interesting question. What Swiss Army knife, if any, would you keep in the kitchen for dedicated kitchen tasks? I don't mind using my Swiss Army knife in the kitchen, but I also use it for a lot of dirtier jobs. Opening it up some more, would you keep any multi-tool in the kitchen, knife or pliers based, or would you stick to the standalone tools that are already in most kitchens? I would stick to the standalone tools in a nutshell to keep the lightning round short. I'm trying to think of what else on a Swiss Army knife would serve you well in the kitchen to warrant a dedicated tool. Maybe the corkscrew, which, dedicated corkscrew is going to work a lot more easily. Maybe a can opener. I'd prefer to use a kitchen style can opener over one of these if given the choice. They could certainly do the things, but a folding knife is going to always be harder to clean than a standard kitchen knife, which cleanliness is next to health when it comes in the kitchen. You don't want any bacteria getting out. And a slip joint style knife with a closed back like this is even more difficult to keep clean. Can you do it in a pinch? Yeah, and I don't have any problem doing it in a pinch, but if you're looking for a dedicated tool to put in the kitchen, save some money, you can get, sorry for the wrapper still on here, it's like an $8 Victorinox paring knife. So you're still in the same Swiss brand right there. Much easier to use, much more clean, much more useful, much more affordable. Hope that helps. I really wish I planned, I did not realize it was him both times.
Here, man.
They might be realizing that from how this is going. Next lightning round question comes from Adrian Chu. Why aren't there more options for kitchen knives with super steels as compared to folders or fixed blades for other purposes? I think the reason for that is market perception. You think about it, KnifeCenter, actually, the stuff we carry a lot of kitchen knives, but there's a lot of different intersecting segments of knife buyers. You've got just your EDC pocket knife type of buyer. You've got people who are in it for like hunting knives or fixed blades, outdoor knives, tactical knives. And sure, there can be a lot of overlap in those areas, but the thing they have in common is it's more of a niche thing. That's more of, a much smaller segment of the population is into that sort of thing compared to kitchen knives, which everybody needs some kitchen knives. Everybody buys kitchen knives. And as such, things serve a much bigger market. So the selection of enthusiast features tend to be a little smaller, not because there's not a market for them. I've certainly spent a lot of money on high performance kitchen knives, but the people who buy the pocket knives, the tactical knives, the hunting knives are less likely actually to buy good kitchen knives. Seems odd, but we've seen it borne out time and time again. You've got people who spent $500 on a pocket knife, no problem, but if they see a set of kitchen knives that's $150 and it only comes with 2 or 3 knives, they're like, oh, that's too expensive. They need more pieces, this or that. It's a funny dichotomy, and I even found myself doing it a little bit earlier in my knife career. There are a few things out there. For instance, this Miyabi Kaizen series knife. There's several in the pattern. This uses a particle steel core in its construction. But this knife right here is like $170. A lot of the stuff with the higher performance steels comes with a higher price tag, which is why oftentimes like the most premium steels you'll see on even like good, like high performance kitchen knives, Japanese style stuff especially, will be something like VG10, which is good stuff, but it's not particle steel. And here's where I'll bring up that Tops Dicer again. They do have a kitchen series, but it's more of a knife guy series of knives designed to appeal to knife guys, or to the knife people. I shouldn't say just guys. You know what I'm talking about. But those niche audiences, this is designed for that. This is not designed for the broader spectrum of things. And it's a harder sell. You know, those buyers are just less likely to buy that sort of thing. I wish it weren't the case, because high performance kitchen knives are life-changing. If you do any of the cooking where you live, invest in some good stuff. It's nice. Like seriously, I've said this before, my favorite knife that I own and use regularly is a Big Chris custom kitchen knife. Better than all my EDCs. It's a fantastic blade. I love it. All right. That wasn't so lightning-y of a question, so I apologize for including it in the lightning round. But now we come to our last question of the day, which is, of course, our most serious question of the day, which comes from Thomas 1981B. Well, that's not you.
No.
Hey, DCA, looking for a particular blade shape in an EDC folder. Something with a reverse Persian tanto and a trailing drop cliff that has some worn sheep's vibes, a modified spearfoot, and a cute belly. Recommendations?
I swear this wasn't me.
Well, I don't have a folder for you, but how about a fixed blade? The CRKT Catch-All, and as the name suggests, it catches just about all the blade shapes up in its blade shape. Maybe? Let's read through. Reverse Persian tanto. I don't even know what that means. If you hold it this way, you know, reverse, you can kind of get reverse Persian, kind of tanto-ish. Yeah, check. Trailing drop cliff. Yeah, you've got the trailing spine, but, you know, a bit of the worn cliffy thing, bit of the drop pointy thing. We're going to give it a check. And some worn sheep's vibes, too. Yeah, it's kind of sheepy worny. Spearfoot. And a cute belly. So he put like sheep, he's got like Warncliffe and sheep's foot in there twice in 2 different things. So it's kind of cheating a little bit. Maybe the belly's not as acute as you envision, but it catches everything else. Catch all blade shape. There you go. Just get used to carrying a fixed blade. That's all we've got for today. Thanks everyone for your questions. Keep them coming in the comment section below. Let me know if you've got some alternate suggestions, or if you've got some beef with any of my answers today. Bring it on. If you want to get your hands on any of these knives, check out the links in the description. They'll take you to KnifeCenter.com. And don't forget, of course, about our Knife Rewards program, because if you're picking up one of these knives today, you'll at least get to earn some free money to spend on a future one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera, and we're signing off. See you next time.